going to go ahead and get started to tell you a little bit more about what RDS is and why do you need it. So RDS is specifically for North Carolina, and it is a process that determines whether you are a resident of the state of North Carolina. And then they use this to grant students in-state tuition in a state-funded financial aid, because North Carolina or in every state has different grants and scholarships that they give to students who are just for the state of North Carolina or whichever state they're in. So this is an additional step that you must complete if you're applying to North Carolina public schools. You will need this number on your applications, in addition to submitting your regular admission application, completing your FAFSA. So you want to go ahead and knock out RDS first thing of the college application process. That is the website on the screen. So ncresidency.org is where you go directly to the RDS portal. And then if you already have a CF&C account, you can just use the same login. So if you think you have an account but you're not sure, just go ahead and click forgot username, because you don't want to have multiple accounts connected to this. Only have one, and if you already have a CF&C account, that's fine. You can go ahead and log in through that same login information. So who needs to fill out the RDS? If you're applying to a community college in North Carolina, you will need it. If you're applying to North Carolina public universities, you will need this application. And you don't need, if you're applying to any school out of state or Duke, Wake Forest, any private college or university here in the state, you don't need RDS. They don't care about this number. Tuition is the same for everyone that applies. It's only for those public schools that have that different like in-state versus out-of-state tuition rate for students. What we do want to point out that, for those who might have DACA, they unfortunately don't qualify for in-state tuition, but you still have to apply and go through the process, and you will be given a RCN number. Before you get started with this process, it will tell you, or it will ask if you have DACA, and if you do, then just mark that, and then you will automatically be marked as out of state, but you still need this number to complete your college applications for public schools in North Carolina. And then another thing that we want to point out for undocumented, for students who have undocumented parents, oftentimes the system will ask for additional information, or maybe your parents don't have a social security, because the way this process works, they verify your information from North Carolina agencies. So they will see the IRS, if your parents file taxes, and if something is not matching up, then that's when you will need to submit additional documents. But if you are a citizen, if you are a permanent resident, then you will be granted in-state tuition. It's just more of there are more obstacles and more paperwork that you have to submit in order to prove to RDS that you do in fact qualify for in-state tuition, because the way they grant you this this classification is on your parents' information, even though they're not the ones attending college, but they look at your parents' information to make a decision for you. But if this is a case for you, or there's something you're worried about, reach out to us and we can help you complete your RDS, and we'll talk more about how to connect with us and answer any questions you may have at the end. Now, Miss Christina, we'll talk a little bit about what to expect.
So because each student's situation is different, the questions that the RDS asks each student might slightly vary, even though they're very similar. So The whole point of this online interview or this online residency application is to identify ways in which you and your family are actual residents of North Carolina. And so since it does require, like Ms. Jackie mentioned, parent information to determine students' residency, it is recommended that you fill this out with a parent next to you, or if you don't have your parents here now, at the end of the session, we can get started up until that parent portion where you will need their information. Next slide, Ms. Jackie. And so here is all of the information that RDS could potentially ask you. So it will ask you for your permanent residence information, that's just your address. It'll ask you what school you're currently attending. It will ask for both students and parents' social security number. And if either student or parent don't have that social security number, you can provide any other identifying information. It will also ask if you are a dependent of a military person or married to someone who has a military affiliation, it will ask them for that information. If you are under a process, under an immigration process to become a resident, or if you're under asylum, it might ask for that that information, the number of when your permanent resident card was issued and when it expires. For your parents, it will ask if they filed taxes within the last few years, if they have any vehicles registered under their name, if they have a driver's license. It'll ask if they do have vehicles, it'll ask for that driver's license number. And it'll also ask for your parents if they are registered to vote and which location they are in. For rare cases, in the case that residency needs more information from you, say you have an undocumented parent and they don't really have any of these situations, or say they need to verify some information, they may ask for school records such as a transcript or a utility bill or a lease agreement just for that extra proof, but that's more in rare cases. And so once you complete this RDS, if you have your parent next to you and you can fill out the whole thing on one sitting, it doesn't take too long. It's maybe about 15 to 20 minutes long. And what happens after is you get something called the RCN, or the Residency Certification Number. But what they will do is, based on your responses, they'll give you in-state or out-of-state status, but then they still have to validate that with the agencies, the respective agencies. So you will enter a period of validation, and then in the case that they get some information back from an agency that says, oh, I can't find anything on Michael's parents filing taxes, then you might go under something called, or then your in-state status may switch to out-of-state if they can't validate it for some reason. At that time, you are given 10 days to file an appeal or a reconsideration. And we'll go a little bit more into that on what each means. But the big thing here is, once you finish RDS, just keep an eye on your email, because you'll get it via email, whether your status has changed at all or not. And then if your status has changed, you do get those 10 days that you must take action. And so it does have that limit. And so it's time sensitive, so you just want to stay on top of your email and make sure nothing changes once you complete it. And so here is what a reconsideration and what an appeal is. A reconsideration is, say I am doing the RDS, and something important to note is each step of the way, each page, it will ask you to confirm all the information you are entering. So it'll say, do you claim to be a North Carolina resident? You'll say yes, and then it'll, before going on to the next page, it'll say, please confirm that this is your answer. And the reason for that is because you can't make any changes in the middle of the application once you've submitted it and confirmed it. But in case you made a mistake or entered something wrong, as soon as you submit it, you can file for reconsideration, which means you want to change some of the information that you just sent. And so you want to do that if you put incomplete information, if you failed to submit a document on time, or if you made an error while entering information, or if you need to change anything in the personal or living situations. So that can be done right after you submit that initial application. An appeal is when you get your decision. So say they say that you are out of state and you want to appeal that because that's not right, you are in state, you can request an appeal, and it must be done within 10 days of you submitting your application. And so you, at this point, when you appeal, pretty much you're saying, my status that you gave me in out of state is not correct, and I will submit supporting documents to prove that I am an in-state resident. So it will ask for more, it could ask for those documents we just talked about that prove that the student and the parents do live in North Carolina. And you must submit this information within 25 days. So it is time sensitive, so you must submit any supporting documents within 25 days. And you just want to be able to be on top of this. In extreme cases, they may ask for what is called an interview, which is where you actually talk to someone either over the phone or in a video meeting. But those are in extreme cases. And if you're interested in either one of these reconsiderations, filing for reconsideration or filing an appeal, we are more than happy to help you with those steps as well. So this is just a screenshot of what it looks like when you go to that ncresidency.org page. Here is where you sign in with your CFNC account username and password. And like Ms. Jackie mentioned, you want to just have one account for your applications and for your residency. So make sure you have one CFNC account, and we can help you call them if necessary to retrieve that information. And this is the first question. Do you claim to be a North Carolina resident? So if you are a legal citizen or resident, you will say yes to that. If you have DACA or are undocumented, you will say no to that. So that's the first question. We just wanted to show you what it's like. And this is pretty much what the system looks like every step of the way, very similar. And at the end, this is what it looks like. So you get in the top, you can see the first arrow that gives you your residency certification number. And then in the middle of the page, you can see that this student was granted North Carolina resident status, and they are in state, and it's valid for a whole year. So for my 11th graders, you could fill out this residency. If you're attending in the fall, you could do it as early as January of that year. For the following fall. So it is valid for a whole year that you get that RCN number. Same as if you're a 12th grader and decide to take a break and not start in the fall, but you start in the spring semester instead, you could go ahead and do that RCN, and you will use that same RCN for the spring semester. I hope I didn't confuse anyone, but you have it for a whole year or 15 months that this is valid. So this is the end of our presentation, very short and sweet because we wanted to get the time to go ahead and start this. But we just wanted to share this last slide of how you can stay connected with us. So we do ask that you please sign in to our sign-in sheet, which is the very top link that says subscribe to our newsletter. With the sign-in sheet, we just track who we help, who attended our meetings, and you get our newsletter with scholarships, with great college information and local information as well. There's a link where you can email us and sign up for an appointment. And we recommend you follow us on our social media as we post a lot of resources, reminders, events, and everything on that as well. So at this time, we wanted to just see if for those that wanted to go ahead and start your residency, your RDS, we wanted to do breakout rooms to go ahead and get started with the process and be able to help you. So Tyler,